Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Jim Cornette Experience, a very somber episode, a very memorable, very monumental, important episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. It may very well be my last podcast. We don't know this to be a fact, but the possibility is there, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to go out not with a whimper, but certainly with a bang on this very special edition where we're going to talk about a variety of things. But to join me here, of course, the man who's been on so much of this journey with me, my right-hand man. I couldn't have done it without him. I won't give him the usual flowery introduction. Instead, I will say that he is merely the paragon of professional podcasting at present. He's your friend and mine, the great Brian Last. Brian, welcome to this very special edition.
Aloha. I feel very special to be here. I don't know where we're going. You caught me by surprise, so let's see what's in store for everyone, including myself, this week.
Well, I did not tell you the content of today's program because I want you to be the one to hear it along with the rest of the cult members. This may be the last show that I preside over. Brian, in the last 24 hours, since I spoke to you yesterday on the phone, in the last 24 hours, I've come down with the coronavirus.
What?
I have come down. Hold on. I have come down. So I can't speak too loudly nor go too fast. I have to keep a pace here, but I've come down with the coronavirus. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the dreaded disease that crashed the stock market, that has threatened the global economy. There's thousands and thousands of people that have fallen ill and hundreds that have died over there in China, and now it's spreading around the world because the world is a smaller place these days, and there's so many places these germs can fucking hide. And there's so many people running around where they get the germ on them, and then they go and they spread it everywhere. That's why you see all those people in all those populated countries wearing those surgical masks, looking like they just stepped off the fucking set of House because they don't want to breathe in the poisonous and plague-ridden germs that are breathed out by all these infected people all across the world. But anyway, I've got the coronavirus. I talked to you yesterday. I was feeling fine. And then I said, I'm sniffling. And I caught myself blowing my nose a couple of times. But it wasn't just blowing your nose where you get like a big handful of that thick green snot that it feels like a water balloon in your fucking palm of your hand in that Kleenex. And you could throw it, hit somebody in the head, and fucking it'd feel like a goddamn hard-boiled egg. It's not that. It's the thin, runny, clear kind of stuff. And when it runs down your throat, the back of your throat, it burns. It burns, Brad. It burns. And it inflames your throat. And then I realized it was harder for me to breathe. And then my ear got stopped up. And I started getting the chills and shivers. I've been cold. I turned the heat up to 70 degrees. Most people know that I could work up a sweat and an ice flow. But I turned the heat up to 70 degrees. I'm wearing my furry jacket inside the house. I had the night sweats last night. I took the NyQuil, and then today I took the DayQuil. And none of those quills have worked. So I'm afraid, if only in the past 24 hours have I begun to feel like this, Brian, I'm afraid I'm going downhill fast. And that's why I want to make some kind of preparations. Just in case, because this thing, it obviously is deadly, and it's bad enough to crash the stock market. So I got to make some arrangements and get my affairs in order here on the show just in case that this is my last program from this crash. And I didn't even have a corona, but I got the coronavirus. And I'm thinking I know what happened because I haven't even left the house really over the last couple of weeks. The only place I go out in public now is the post office because it's been so cold and so wet and rainy and damp. Today I woke up, there was a crusting of snow on the ground. I go to the post office. I don't touch anybody. Bree is a clean young lady. I know she ain't got no germs. She's the only person I have any interaction with. Otherwise I haven't left the house, haven't gone out in public. I couldn't figure it out until I realized a couple nights ago we ordered Chinese. I got my General Toes.
This is ridiculous.
No, I got my General Toes. and I got my super duper fried rice all the way like I usually do with everything in it.
General Toes?
Huh? The General Toes chicken. That good stuff, boy. And when the guy made the handoff, we got it delivered, of course. When the guy made the handoff, he touched me. And I'm thinking his cousin has just come in from Shanghai and has brought this shit before they instituted the crackdown, and that's how I've got this. So anyway, I'm making the preparations, like I said, and Brian Last, today right here in front of the entire cult of Cornette members, all the listeners, I'm not offering you a spot. I'm offering you my spot.
Well, you're not the only one who feels shanghaied after listening to this intro.
Well, wait, after what all has happened, if this is the last experience, if I'm too ill to continue, or if knock on wood, I don't make it, I want you to take this podcast, Brian, and I want you to enter into the next decade as the Brian Last experience.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. I have a feeling, though, maybe I'll be introducing a new format. Perhaps the Happy Heyman Show.
Hey!
No?
What? Are you? But
just an idea. Just an idea.
Look here. Even if I am sick and ill and diseased and on death's door, I still got to be in better shape than fucking Heyman. He looks like he ain't got 15 minutes left. His heart's going to blow up. Something's going to fucking happen. Look at the way he is ballooned. But anyway, getting back to my heartfelt presentation before you stabbed me in the back, Judas, are you a warrior or an Evan boy? What I was also going to say, well, you might have to make slight modifications in Corny's drive-through. It might have to become the last chateau. This is 2 podcasts now that you've completed. You're changing the format and Happy Heyman Hour.
I didn't say hour. I was thinking a multi-hour.
Well, it would
program.
have to be with him. From the time he said good evening until he signed off, it would be longer than an hour. But anyway, I feel like I'm being kicked now when I'm down. I'm ill. I'm under the weather. I'm on death's door. I got one foot in the grave and the other foot on a banana peel. And here you are already replacing me. It's like you're buying a puppy. I'm the old dog. I'm 15 years old, and I know what's coming up when the puppy comes in the house.
I would never, ever do that to you, but I have to say, you do sound pretty good. Usually when you're sick, it is something you could hear. Now you're doing a little coughing behind.
I'm trying to.
I can't tell if that's for effect or if you're really feeling it.
No, I'm just trying. I was trying to have you cover that up while I sucked in a little snot.
Oh, don't even. I can't even deal with you talking about that. But you sound all right. If that's
all right, I just can't talk too fast. And it hadn't got it. It's only been 24 hours. Hadn't got in my chest yet. That comes after a few days. It kind of starts at the top and it moves downward.
What is the sickest?
And then it comes out my ass.
What is the sickest you've ever been on camera that we wouldn't know unless you told us?
Oh God! Well, now that they're and especially of course, the Mid-Atlantic podcast is tweeting a bunch of stuff, clips from the 80s. NWA shows and it's on the network and people send clips around, and every once in a while you come across one where you can tell my voice is gone. I'm talking, and let me tell you that, and that's,
yeah.
We're working literally 7 nights a week, plus the Saturday morning TV and most Sundays, matinee and evening show, and very, 1 or 2 days off a month during that period. And coming in contact with every form of germ and illness and weather and people and shit, and having people, throw up on you, as I've mentioned, happened to me in Little Rock, Arkansas one night. I don't know that they did it there or saved it and brought it with them. But anyway, but you just got a couple of times I've just broke down and said, fuck it. And would take a day or 2 off, but I don't ever remember. I mean, I can't tell you a specific time on, like, I remember what Bobby, not the Clash of Champions, but it was TV. It was syndicated television, worldwide wrestling. Excuse me, in Chattanooga, where we beat the Fantastics beat us for the U.S. Tag Team title. We went the whole hour. Actually, it was a 40-minute match, and it was the preamble and the interviews afterwards, right? Which was a famous episode of television at that time.
Yeah.
Bobby had a fever of 102 and was puking his toenails up in the locker room. We were at the UTC Roundhouse that day. And we'd got there early because it was TV, and he was sick and miserable. And of course, we knew that this was what we were going to do. We, Dusty had told us, like, next week at the taping, on whatever night it was on the Worldwide show, you're going to do the whole hour with the Fantastics. So I'm like, I'm asking, do we need to change this, or what can we do, or how? Because we all wanted to do this because we knew it would be, a great match to get on fucking video. Back then, when all the big main event matches, you didn't get them on video. Anyway, and it was going to further our gimmick, our angle. And he said, nah, Corny, I'll be okay. And then he goes out there, and at 40 fucking minutes, it was voted match of the year, second best match of the year, and some of the, everything from the Observer on down, and TV show of the year and all this stuff. And he was, the only thing you could tell is he was even paler than normal. Bobby was never tan to begin with, but he was paler than normal that day. But I remember our first Smoky Mountain Wrestling spot show. We had done a TV taping in Greenville, South Carolina in October of 91, and then came back to Morristown, Tennessee, East High School in November to do the two pilot tapings, 4 episodes, 2 apiece. But our first live event that we ran was back at Morristown in January of 92. The main event was me and Stan Lane against Tim Horner and the principal of the high school that I was going to put over, right? Jerry Williams, who had never worked in his life. And boy, I knew that as soon as he got a hold of me. And basically that was it. We drew for a promotion with no television, and we had just run a TV taping there 6 weeks beforehand. We, drew, I think 700 or 800 people, because they wanted to see the principal in the ring beat me up. So that day, I've got the raging shits. I am squirting everywhere. I can't cough or sneeze or stand up without shitting myself. I'm so ill at my stomach. I'm fucking sweating. And, when you're going to throw up and your mouth is salivating. I'm sure I'm going into too much detail for you. You have one of those stomachs. So I lay in a hotel in Knoxville, a Red Roof Inn. I remember this until the last possible minute. Sandy Scott's gone on ahead to open up and start selling tickets. And Brian Hildebrand had the finishes. And I said, I'll be there sometime before I'm supposed to get in the ring. And I think I got there, the show was already going on, and I went and I changed into my shit, no pun intended, my wrestling gear, and I laid in the floor, and I waited to put the trunks on until the last minute because I was still shitting all the time, even though now it was whatever liquid I'd take in, right? And so I lay there, and finally the time for the match, and I figured, okay, we can get through this. And of course, the finish has got to be Jerry Williams beating me. And we taught him how to pick somebody up in a simple body slam, right? This is going to be the finish. I'm going to run from him when I miss something, and he's going to get tagged in. I'm going to run from him. He's going to grab me, pick me up, and slam me, cover me, and pin me, right? And Horner's going to block Stan off. So the couple of times that I've gotten the ring on offense, when we're getting the heat on Horner, just to do a couple things, get some heat, I dropped an elbow and shit myself. I said, oh, fuck. And then I did something else and shit myself. So I'm shitting myself on offense now, right? And finally the time comes and I tag in to do something to Horner and finish him off, but I missed that and shit myself. And he tags Williams, and here comes Jerry Williams. And he picks, and I've even got a picture of this. He picked me up and gave me a pretty good body slam. The body slam didn't hurt me, except I shit myself. But I was shitting myself without hurting myself. He body slams me, and I shit myself again for what I think is the final time. And then as he came down on me, he thought the cover was a shoot. And Horner told him to hook the leg, so he hooks one of the legs, and he drives. And not only did he hook one of my legs, but he drove his elbow bone into my throat to put it across my throat to really hold me down, right? Like I was going to try to kick out. And when he elbowed my throat, I shit myself again. And this time it bubbled through the fucking tight because my ass was up in the air. And he's like, you stink. I said, you do too. Your work does at least. And yeah, that was a real shitty match I had.
Oh, why did I ask this question? Did you take any Pepto or anything before you go?
Here's another time I was sick. I caught something in Louisiana. After a show, I was riding to Shreveport because we were going to do TV the next day from, I think, maybe Monroe with Carl Fergie and Buddy Landell. Bobby and Dennis didn't have to be. No, we were going to do interviews. And we went to do the interviews. Bobby and Dennis didn't have to be at interviews, so they went home. So I rode with, and I got sick after the show, and I sat in the back seat and like, you know, that fucking green seasick fucking feeling. And I said, my God, I'm so ill at my stomach. I don't know. And they said, get some Pepto-Bismol. And I had never taken Pepto-Bismol before. When I was a kid, I didn't get stomach issues that much, and I just had never taken Pepto-Bismol. I'd seen the commercials, right? So I get the thing of Pepto-Bismol, and I sit down at the famous Alamo Plaza Motor Court in Shreveport, Louisiana, down the road from Channel 3, where all the boys stayed. And I sat down in that room, and the first thing I did, I'd stopped at the convenience store on the corner. I got the Pepto-Bismol. It says, take fucking whatever, 2 tablespoons. I don't have a spoon. So I just sitting there, and I'm ill, and I took a swig, just one swig. And as soon as I swallowed that shit, Brian, it looked like a fire hose. I have never before or since been able to duplicate this, but I projectile vomited pink fucking Pepto-Bismol from one end of the Alamo Plaza room to the other. It had to be 15 feet, hit the curtains. Couldn't even wipe it off the wall. Had to get the curtains and the air conditioning unit and the floor. And I mean, I couldn't stop, and it just, boom. But after I had blown pink and chunks all over this whole hotel room, I did feel better after that than what I had felt riding in the car on the way over. But if that's the way Pepto-Bismol is supposed to work, I was not really up for more of it in the future, and I've never taken Pepto-Bismol again since. It was the same experience that I had with Nestle's Quick when I was 5 years old.
Oh, jeez. You know, I regretted instantly asking you about being sick and wrestling. And then I figured Pepto would be a nice way to get off that and talk about a positive, and you just made it worse.
Well, no, here's the thing. It don't take me long to look at a horseshoe. If you were Southern, you'd know the joke to that punchline. But it was the same thing when I had Nestle's Quick. I was 5 years old. I'd seen the commercials, had the rabbit on the cover. You pour the fucking stuff in the milk, and it makes chocolate milk. And I like chocolate milkshakes. I know that much from Jerry's Big Boy over here, right? So I have her get, you know, at the store, I'm in the cart, right? Chocolate milk, Nestle's Quick, right? So she fixes me the deal, boom, stirs it up. I took a big swig of that, and I puked all over the goddamn living room just instantly. And to this day, I can drink a chocolate milk shake, but I cannot stomach the idea of having a sip of chocolate milk. And that's been almost 55 years ago.
So you've never had a Yoo-hoo?
No, Kate, no. No. Yoo-hoo? No.
You're not missing much, I'll tell you.
They ought to rename them Yoo-hoo. Anyway, so you shit all over my nice ceremony and presentation I was going to make to you. If I don't pull through this, I was giving you my spot. These wildly popular, highly rated shows that you could carry on as the preeminent and prosperous podcaster of professional wrestling presently, but instead you scoff at me. So I will turn to the Cult of Cornette members. And I will say, if this is the last podcast that I do, folks, order quick to JimCornette.com at Cornette's Collectibles while I'm still around, because these items will appreciate in value after my intestines liquefy and I bleed out my anal orifice from this goddamn coronavirus. The way I feel now, folks, I'd say if you get your order in the next 2 or 3 days, you could get a collector's item. You get something autographed by somebody who's no longer around, including the official Jim Cornette Legends figures from the Figures Toy Company that we talked about. I've just had them on sale less than 2 weeks now. We talked about there were going to be less than 500 offered for sale on JimCornette.com in 2020. That figure's down to about $375, and they're moving rapidly. So if you want the action figure and you don't want to get left out, do it quick. Especially if you want it autographed. I'm sure Stacy, after I'm gone, will sell the remaining stock, but they won't be autographed. I do those custom. My Behind the Curtain, my wildly popular and highly successful best-selling graphic novel, 80 pages of wrestling history, the glossary of wrestling terms alone worth the price of admission. The only place you can get signed copies, JimCornette.com, $19.95. That's just fucking ridiculous. I'm giving this shit away. Burger towels are back. Classic wrestling DVDs between $9 and $15. The Wrestling Gold is less than $1 an hour. and listen to me now. I'm wheezing, so order this shit over the weekend, folks, or you may not get it. JimCornette.com. Spend every penny you have right now because this stuff will appreciate and value, as I mentioned, after I'm gone and underground.
Does Stacy know how to do your signature?
No, nobody can do my signature. I have exemplary penmanship. But we are trying hard on fulfillment. Before I came down with the coronavirus, all the orders as of Tuesday morning, January 28th, are already on the way. And we've been doing a 2 or 3, 4 day turnaround. Expect a little bit more this weekend while I'm medicated on one of the quills, which may be the reason why I'm just making terrible choices as far as words to use today and stories to tell, because I'm medicated and I'm very foggy-headed. But yeah, get it while you can at JimCornette.com is all I have to say. You've been warned. This stuff is going to skyrocket in value. Look at what happened to Shakespeare's shit after he died.
You know, my family did the commercial printing for Andy Warhol. And when Andy died, he had this guy, the guy who worked for him that we dealt with regularly, Rupert Smith. Rupert Smith came running into the factory and started signing everything. Andy Warhol, Andy Warhol.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. But I don't think he was unique. I think basically everyone who worked for Andy did Andy's signature. So there's a lot of Warhol stuff out there that it really kind of Warhol-esque. Instead of Andy's actual signature, it's one of Andy's lieutenants who signed it, Andy Warhol. But what could be more Warhol than that?
Well, whether you're a Warhol or an asshole, one way or the other, you're getting a real signature at JimCornette.com. But speaking of assholes, you've been watching this. Oh, God, Kentucky is the worst state in the world. My state, my beautiful bluegrass state, gave birth to and enabled Bitch McConnell. When's the last time they had a trial where they didn't call any witnesses or tried not to call any witnesses? They're still fighting about it. When is the last time that somebody was accused of doing something and the guy that he was doing it with that can tell people, yeah, that's what he was doing, the Republicans don't want to hear from him? John Bolton.
Mr. Republican.
Mr. Republican. Now they've rolled over on him, Mr. Republican, Mr. Conservative, the biggest crackpot of the bunch of them. And boy, that's saying something. It's like being the crookedest guy in the wrestling business to be the biggest crackpot Republican. That's an accomplishment. And now they're trying to stop him and his book. First, they were trying to stop. You see this right now? The White House said, oh, that's classified. Yeah, it's classified. Whatever he says about Donald Trump committing crimes or Donald Crump committing crimes is classified information. They're scared shitless. The Republicans and Mitch are trying to cover for him because they know what the fuck he did. They know what the fuck he is. We've been saying it and saying it and saying it. And now they're panicking and trying not to let anybody say what he is and what he did. And meanwhile, have you noticed Trump over the last few months, he's got to be scared shitless because he's going to the old standbys. He went to the NRA thing, and now he just went to the pro-life thing. The first president ever to go to the pro-life march and publicly throw in with the religious fanatics instead of what the majority of the American public wants, which is decide whether they have kids or not. He's going back to the religious nuts and the gun nuts to save him. And they may very well do it because these people are dangerous and they are highly motivated to vote. They would take Charles Manson as president if he would outlaw abortion because God said so. Their fictitious, invisible, supreme being that runs everything, the most ungodly person in the world, Donald Trump, a criminal, asshole, sexual abuser, racist, rapist, whatever the fuck. As long as he'll outlaw abortion, they think. then he's okay as president, the leader of the free world. And he will sucker them into thinking he will do that. And he might actually do it. If he thinks he's going to lose, he might actually do it. And then he knows he's got them because the religious nuts are the group that will most believe a bullshit story. It's ingrained in them. The NRA and the gun nuts and the patriots. He knows he's got them too. As we mentioned, the only government that should ever have been overthrown in the United States of America is this one, and they don't want to do it. And he knows that they're goddamn gullible enough and stupid enough and delusional enough in their Rambo fantasies, and the patriots and the militias and the gun nuts and the 2A, the God nuts, the gun nuts, and the patriots could finally be the ones to destroy the United States of America. So we got to stop these people, start browbeating your friends, your sane friends, to get out and vote in November. Call your congressman, if you have a Republican, and tell him he's a piece of shit unless they put the witnesses in the impeachment trial, the witnesses to the crime that was committed, so we can get this fucking idiot out of here. Just anything at this point. Just any fucking thing. They think they can do whatever the fuck they want to do and just disregard everything because they're scared they're going to lose an election where the only people that are voting for them are these Cro-Magnon cave people that are trying to fucking destroy the fucking country with their horse shit. And they don't care that a crook is in charge of them. Am I missing something?
No, but I think it is important to stress that if you want change, whatever happens in the general election for president, that's what happens. But what we really need to do is flip the Senate.
Well, yes. Yes.
So all these crackpot senators who, Lindsey Graham, for instance, it's time, even though he wants to be senator for life, it's time that South Carolina wakes up. If this guy can't be honest with you about his sexuality, he's probably not being honest with you about anything else.
I got a feeling he has no sexuality. I got a feeling that there's nobody in the world that wants to have sexuality with Lindsey Graham. But anyway, but I mean, the Republicans will actually run child molesters. They did in Alabama, and the Republican voters will actually vote for them in order to keep the sane, responsible, level-headed Democratic Party from saving them once again from another disastrous Republican administration. Same thing happened, I don't know, about 11 years ago. You fucking morons. They've either got to start a war, crash the global economy, commit high crimes and misdemeanors, or do both or all three. But if Barack Obama wore the wrong color suit while he was in the midst of fixing all the fucking Republicans' fucking bullshit, they got mad at him. I hate you fucking people. Well, not you people. There are some Republicans that sneak in and watch this or listen to this program. But they should not announce themselves or they'll be shown the door. So I hate those people, not you people.
There are some very fine listeners who happen to be Republican.
Oh, fuck them. You know what? Here's the one time I disagree with Bill Maher. Bill Maher said you can hate Trump, but don't hate the people that voted for him. No, fuck you. I hate you too. It's your fault. Gullible fucks. For fuck's sake. If somebody runs you fucking down in the street because the goddamn stoplight didn't goddamn work properly, you can hate the person that run you down and also hate the person that manufactured the fucking stoplight because they did a shitty job. Fuck it. At this point, it's not good enough just to have buyer's remorse and see that you've made a tragic error. I think all you Trumpers should have to pay for this for the rest of your lives by having a T branded on your fucking forehead. So that people could see you coming down the street and go, fuck, we need to stay away from that motherfucker. He elected a goddamn idiot, President of the United States. Anyway, you know what I need, Brian?
I can think of a few things.
I need to calm down.
That would be one of the things I was just thinking of.
Well, I know now how to do it. We talked about this one time before, and as soon as I figured, you were supposed to teach me how to use an app, weren't you, now that I've come to think about this?
I don't remember you saying I had to teach you how to use the app.
Well, because there is a new app out, which everybody knows that I don't know how to apply apps, but there's a new app out called Calm. And LeBron James, the basketball player, big-time professional athlete, has teamed up with these people, and because it doesn't just help you train your body, this helps you train your mind, mental fitness, sleep, and meditation. It calms you down. LeBron James knows that your mind is like any other muscle in your body, and Calm can help you train your brain so you sleep better, have less stress, and perform at your best. Because for LeBron James, sleep is an important part of his mental fitness routine. And you were supposed to teach me how to use this app so I can get better sleep and meditate and calm the fuck down with a dangerous criminal lunatic as president of the United States. And so you need to do this for me because we can get a deal here. As a matter of fact, all the Cult of Cornette members that do know how to use an app, if you go to calm.com/JCE, you get 40% off the premium membership. And they give you sleep stories and meditations and nature scenes. LeBron James loves rain on leaves, from what I'm told.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Well, there's something to be said for it.
That's right.
But anyway, for a limited time, folks, our listeners, the Cult of Cornette members can join LeBron James in using Calm with a 40% discount to an annual membership of calm.com/JCE. So you can help it can help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better if you get started at calm.com/JCE. And you're going to have to be talking about this after I'm gone. I don't know if I have time to get calm before I'm going to succumb to this deadly illness.
Well, I think we should spell this out for those of you who may be a little confused. CALM.com.
Well, how else would you spell calm the fuck down?
Well, calm.com could be easily heard various different ways.
I was talking about being calm.
Yes.
And then I say
calm.com/JCE.
How else would you spell it, CALM?
No, that's exactly how you would spell it, but
that's
saying
how else
it out loud, you don't know what people are hearing on the other end.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I don't know what you're hearing. I may change my mind. I'm feeling better now. I may not give you this show. Fuck, I'm going to have to nip up. Apparently, you're not ready.
I may need that rain on the leaves any second now.
As a matter of fact, I got an email about you from Joel Claunch, as a matter of fact. This is the entirety of the email. Goddamn, Jim, what are you, heartless? Brian is practically begging you for help. For shit's sake, get that non-cheese-eating son of a bitch some fucking cheese. That's what you've needed. That's why you're not calm. You don't eat enough cheese.
Yeah, you know what? What's his name, Joel?
Joel Claunch.
I don't have to say anything. His name says it all.
What, his name says Claunch?
Thank you, Mr. Claunch.
You're a mean one, Mr. Claunch.
And for the record,
crabgrass in your soul.
I had a snack before we recorded because these sessions take so long.
Yeah.
And it was something
longer every week.
Something you weren't aware of, apparently. I had some string cheese. Before. Sorrento's light string cheese. And it was delicious. And it was white. I don't like yellow cheese. I don't know why anyone would.
No. You need some good old melty American cheese on some bunny bread. That's what you need. Fix you right up.
Disgusting.
This fucking northeastern attitude.
Do you like grilled cheese? Because that's another thing, obviously, I don't eat.
Grilled cheese on the bread. On the bread. Have you ever seen on the Cartoon Network? It's Elmer Fudd doing kind of a slow not James Brown, but Isaac Hayes groove song called Grilled Cheese on the Bread.
I have not seen this, no.
I like grilled cheese on the bread. And especially if there's a little bacon in between there, then that'll just make your lips smack your fucking brains out. Anyway, do you eat anything properly?
I eat lots of things properly.
You're always talking about granola and fucking bagels and,
Do you like Indian food? I just had some Indian food.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Are you out of your mind? Who knows what that shit is?
It's fantastic. That's what it is. Get some chicken tikka masala. It's delicious.
Stace has had that. It smells like a dirty fucking diaper. Stace loves that Indian food. When we were over in the UK, they kept that's all you could find is Indian food with that dirty nappy fucking shit.
It's delicious. It's delicious. Get a samosa, some fritters. I believe it's called vegetable pakora. Delicious.
I don't know. All I know is I didn't see any stray dogs in the neighborhoods of all those restaurants.
Do you like Colombian food?
What is even Colombian food?
Again, it's delicious. There's lots of meat, plantains, or plantanos, as they are called in the Colombian restaurant. There's beautiful women with fantastic asses everywhere you look in the Colombian restaurant.
Are you allowed to eat them too?
I don't think so, because
what does that
the
have
Colombian
to do with
woman
the
I'm with may have a problem with that.
Well, what does that have to do with the menu then? That was a very sexist thing to say. You're talking about the foods of Colombia, the culture of Colombia, then suddenly these women with big asses comes up.
Well, I'm not going to lie. When I think of the Colombian restaurant, that is one of the things I think of. And it's not necessarily they have big asses. Some of them do, but it's the pants they wear. They just fit perfectly. It's wonderful. Noches de Colombia nearby. So again, I'm showing that I eat various things. Well, I'm a worldly man, an extravagant man, a very elegant man when it comes to food. I don't just eat grilled cheese sandwiches and whatever it is you're eating over there.
Well, I'll take you to some places here down south to eat. I don't know if the pants are fitted properly or if the women have big asses or not, but you'll get some decent food, for heaven's sake.
We'll see. I was just talking to John Arezzi about this. About how he's kind of sick of barbecue. And when he comes to New York, which he comes rather often, he lives in Nashville right now, the food is so much better up here. He can get so much better food up here. Better chicken.
He's an original New Yorker. He's a crackpot New Yorker. Better chicken. Where are you going to get better fried chicken than Hattie B's in Nashville, Tennessee?
Specifically, actually, I was just talking to John about this. There's a place he likes named Chicken Tonight in Lindenhurst on Long Island. I haven't had it yet. He swears by it. And they have great steak fries, apparently. I can't believe we're talking about this.
The best fried chicken in America is at Hattie B's in Nashville, downtown on Broadway, just so you know.
Have you ever had Popeyes? Because obviously I just had Chick-fil-A.
Oh, have I ever had Popeyes? What, have I ever taken a breath? Have I ever tied my shoes? What, have I ever had Popeyes? How the fuck would you never have Popeyes?
I've never had Popeyes.
Oh, God.
Well, you wouldn't have one if there isn't one nearby.
Well, you don't travel as much as I do. I guess that is a point.
I mean, there's one nearby, a place I go in Bushwick, but I'm not going to that one.
Bushwick?
Bushwick in Brooklyn.
Could you ever get bushwhacked over in Bushwick?
Oh, very easily. Very, very easily.
Well, anyway, I'm not going to be able to save your tastes. So I'll tell you what else. Here's another thing. If I am not terminally ill from this coronavirus, I got another problem. I got another email from a member of the cult. I will not mention his name because he is an attorney. And I don't know, attorney-client privilege, and also, he does a variety of things. I don't know if he wants to be identified. But he's represented a number of the wrestlers in some various things. We've talked about, he did some work at the border last year when the U.S. government was trying to fuck all those fucking immigrants that were trying to come over legally and showing up at the right place and asking the right questions by putting their kids in cages and kicking them back into Mexico. He was doing some pro bono work down there to try to help them not get fucked around, find their children. But anyway, he wrote this letter, and I'm worried again. Hi, Jim. My uncle had been using Zantac, both over-the-counter and prescription, to treat heartburn, and after doing so for over a dozen years was diagnosed during an unrelated checkup with kidney cancer.
Oh my God.
While getting an image of his lungs, which were fine, they inadvertently took an unordered image of his kidney, and there was the cancer. It was a fluke. He was diagnosed, and it saved his life. He had the kidney removed, but now there's issues with his other kidney. And I've told everybody, Jim Hurd put me on the Zantac 30 years ago. I have not taken it regularly for some time, thank goodness. But this gentleman goes on to say his uncle contacted me last week because he saw an ad saying that Zantac has been linked to kidney cancer and was being recalled. I don't do mass torts, which is illegal. Basically, he doesn't do these type of suits. He's an attorney, but not in this field. So I immediately reached out to Stephen P. New. Stephen P. New, Stephen P. New. I hear that song every time I say his name, in quotation marks. Anyway, Stephen thought the case was good, and we signed him up. I'm also working on getting Stephen another case based on known and undisclosed health risks related to a prescription, and I'm glad to have someone to send these cases to that I know I can trust rather than a referral service like I did before. So my only point is you may want to mention the link between Zantac and kidney cancer, because while I know my uncle had always suffered from heartburn and had kidney cancer, I didn't know a popular drug sold by prescription and over the counter have been linked and recalled for it. Had I been alerted that Zantac was linked to kidney cancer, I definitely would have asked him if he was on it. So please keep beating the drum of justice. We need more voices out there. So if the goddamn coronavirus don't get me, the Zantac is going to. And I don't know, I could sue for the Zantac cancer, but can I sue for the coronavirus? I need to call Steven.
Yeah, who would you sue?
China. I'm already pissed at him for the lateness of my action figures and why I've only got a certain amount for the for the calendar year, and now they're going to kill me on top of that. But this just goes to show this guy's been attorney for quite some time and does a variety of things. But when he had a family member that was sick and had a case, because he does not do that type of law, who did he call? Stephen P. New. And what number did he call, by the way? 888-692-8084. And he could have emailed and gone to newlawoffice.com. But anyway, even the other professionals are hiring up Stephen P. New. He's racked up this unbeaten streak here lately. It's incredible. So, but folks, if you've been taking Zantac like I have and you get diagnosed, call Stephen P. New.
Did you just open a soft drink?
Yes, I did, because my throat is dry and my nose is snurfly. And I had to take a little swig there.
A swig of what?
A swig of Sprite. Sprite Zero.
Sprite Zero, okay.
Yes.
When you find out this is getting you sick, imagine this lawsuit.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Well, they ought to just give me the factory. If Sprite was to stab me in the back after at 2 Brutai. Because between me and Sprite, everything's always been sunshine and lollipops, rainbows and waterfalls, and every little thing. Anyway.
How many other podcasts reference both Judas and Brutus in the same week?
Yeah, and sunshine and lollipops and rainbows and waterfalls. Anyway, real quick, before we get to the Wednesday night reviews, and then I crawl back in my sick bed, you recommended me a book that you have not read yet, but that I got and read over the holiday break. It is Rolling Thunder by Scott Stevens, and it's the golden age of roller derby and the rise and fall of the LA T-Birds.
Yeah, I have it here in my book pile. I haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but I can't wait. I used to love when I was a teenager, ESPN Classic still aired some of the stuff from the 70s with Ralphie Valadares and Skinny Minnie and the greatest female heel of all time, wrestling or roller derby, whatever, Miss Georgia Haas. Miss Georgia Haas. Fantastic.
Miss Georgia Haas.
That's right.
Well, and for all of you who remember roller derby like I do the first time around, or from limited reinventions and replays like Brian, this is not a book on the history of the sport per se, but it focuses on the team of the LA T-Birds and the roller games that the T-Birds were the top team for. There was also the roller derby, which was started back in the 30s by the Seltzer family. And then the roller games came along in about 1960. And it's like a lot of the wrestling books. Scott Stevens, the guy that wrote it, was a skater, and then he went on to become a musician and has done a variety of things. But he spent a few years with the T-Birds right after the initial down period, the first down period of the mid-'70s, when everything went to hell and never came really fully back. So he was around but he worked with some of the veterans, but also he was around for the newer, sort of like one of the in-between generations in wrestling. But anyway, so this is like the wrestling books in that it's a fan's book. I won't spoil anything for you when I tell you that you have to have some working knowledge, Brian, of what roller derby and roller games was to begin with to really enjoy this. Like you should, like with a lot of the wrestling books where people just assume this is the audience, and it doesn't go into, and there's problems with, to me, with chronology, because it's a little all over the place with its chronology of things, but there's a lot of great information in this, and that's why, and pictures and everything, and that's why I liked it. And we'll probably do a show after you read it. We'll do a whole show on roller derby sometime, because that was the sport that was joined with wrestling in the 60s and 70s forever, and 50s for everybody that grew up watching TV in that period of time. But in this instance, there were similarities between wrestling and roller derby. And I always said, boy, if wrestling wasn't careful, it might end up in the same predicament. Now there's more than 2 companies. For a while, there was only 2. But roller derby, as a sport and as a mainstream thing, went out of business in 1974. And there's been revivals, but it never came back like it was from the 50s through the 70s. And the similarities in wrestling, to me, were number one, the one guy was a businessman that owned one side, and the other one, it was a family business, which was sort of similar to the McMahon and TBS rivalry days. But at the same time, one roller derby was more serious sport with the gaga thrown in, whereas roller games was just out and out sports entertainment, sort of like the NWA and WWF, Crockett and Vince. So there were similarities, but it was the two worked sports on television that were drawing some of the largest live crowds. I mean, roller derby at their zenith put almost 50,000 people in the ballpark in Chicago. And they were doing huge business in California, both San Francisco and Los Angeles, and they would do the tours across the country. And, you know, it was amazing business that just in a period of about a year and a half went under. Seltzer wanted to get out of the business. The oil crisis happened in 73, and it wasn't like the territory days of wrestling for roller derby. There were really only two companies, and they were both nationwide. But Seltzer was doing everything himself practically, and he decided to get out of the business. And Bill Griffiths, the guy that owned roller games, bought everything that Seltzer had, and then put the dream team together where Joni Weston and Ann Cavello, everybody was on the T-Birds. But that only lasted a year because, like when Crockett bought all the Phelan territories, he overextended himself, and he couldn't ride out certain, you know, financial things that came up because he was all by himself. So it was like wrestling in that it was a small business that got so massive and for a while was so popular, but ultimately couldn't sustain itself because it was still at the heart a small business. And did I do a pretty good wrap up for people who've never seen it before?
Yeah, really good wrap up. And, you know, one of the other cool things when I first started seeing the replays of the old stuff, because when I was a kid, when I first got into wrestling, that's when Rock and Roller Games was on in 1989.
Oh, God, I hated that so bad.
See, as a kid, I loved it. As a kid, I thought it was cool, but I had never seen anything before that, so I had no frame of reference. But when I first saw the stuff from the 70s, it was in the Olympic. And it's like, wow, this is where all those wrestling photos I've seen by Theo Everett and Dan Westbrook, it was in the same building, the same sign behind it. And that was one of the things with roller games and roller derby in San Francisco and LA. It was in the Cow Palace, and it was in the Olympic Auditorium. So you had an intermingling of the crowds. It was in the same buildings that housed the wrestling.
Yeah, and sometimes outdrew wrestling. And sometimes the TV ratings were every bit as good, if not better. And actually, Dick Lane, who did the Los Angeles wrestling program, also was the voice of the LA T-Birds.
Yeah.
Oh, Nelly. In San Francisco, my God, Ann Cavello was God, and the Bay Bombers were God. When we started going to San Francisco in '86 for Crockett, I did. It was at the end of '86 into '87. I did one of the local promos, and I said, "Let me tell you something, Rock and Roll Express. We're gonna." And I put my hands on my hips and said, "We're gonna cut off your jam right there in San Francisco, baby." And everybody got it, even though it was more than 10 years after the fact, because it was San Francisco. They had roller derby continuously on a local level, at least. It never left San Francisco and still do to this day. But, you know, the Bay Bombers were the fucking team.
Am I getting confused? Did she date Ray Stevens at one point?
Yeah, I understand that Ann was wild enough to have dated a number of the boys. And I got to meet her one of the trips out to San Francisco, and I had a picture with her in the lobby of the hotel, and I don't know where that ever went because I can't find it now. But she was wild. She was one of the boys, and yeah, she dated a bunch of the boys, and Bobby Heenan knew her well, and I think I'm trying to think. He may have been the one because we were all there together. I think that was one of the times that the WWF guys were there. He may have been the one to introduce me. I don't know, but anyway.
How tan was she?
She looked like that referee the other day on NXT. She was so tan and had the bright cotton white hair. And she was 50-something, but, you know, she always had, you know, the body, right? And anyway, but this book, I wanted to read a couple things because, once again, this was a sport at heart, but it was worked for entertainment value. And roller derby and wrestling did this before they had the dunk contests in the NBA and before they brought showbiz and the lights and the entrances and everything into other sports. They still didn't, monkey with the game too much. But roller derby and wrestling were out there as a mix of sports and entertainment beforehand. As a matter of fact, Leo Seltzer, the guy that invented it in the 30s, originally, it was a marathon skating contest back in the Depression when they had the dance contest for 100 hours. It was and the marathon skating. And Damon Runyon, the sports writer, suggests to Leo Seltzer, hey, make this a game, make it a sport, have scoring and exaggerate shit, beef it up, probably like wrestling was doing at the time. Damon Runyon's a New York sports writer, and he's seeing all the goddamn publicity wrestling was getting in New York in the 30s for being entertainment. So anyway, they do this. And then, of course, just like wrestling, it became more and more entertainment, less and less sport. The one time that they tried to make roller derby a shoot, complete shoot, was in the 59-60 season. They decided they were going to make it a shoot, and it was legitimate scoring and everything. And because they had, who was it? It was Ralphie Valadares and maybe Mike Gammon, but God damn it. They had the two, Ralphie Valadares, and they had the two best, maybe it was John Hall. The two best male skaters in the business were both on the same team, so the fucking Bombers started winning literally 100-40 or whatever. So they had to go back to work in the next season because it was killing the fucking ticket sales because they were just smashing everybody. But especially and it was huge in the 50s on television and live, and it was kind of like wrestling, kind of, bubbled in the 60s, and it was still hot, but then the 70s it blew up again. But they learned a little bit too late, right after they had gone out of business, when they tried to resurrect the thing. Everybody that tried to resurrect it after the fact was going after the show business and not after the sport. And all the skaters that had come along that were actually legitimately tremendous skaters and had so much experience because they skated game after game after game. They ran San Jose every week in the season and then toured in another season around the country. So they skated relentlessly. They were better skaters. So just a couple of passages in this book. See if you could apply this to wrestling. The very mention of the word fake is offensive to most former pro skaters, and most will staunchly defend the integrity of their beloved sport. You'd be hard-pressed to find skaters who didn't have a severe injury while participating in the derby. Injuries are typically the first response when a derby skater is questioned about the legitimacy of the sport. There's no doubt that roller derby is a dangerous, violent, and often brutal sport, staged or not. And the athletic abilities of these performers cannot be questioned. Most skaters just wanted to be a professional athlete and not an actor. And then, hold on. There we go.
There you go.
When the game is executed well with top-level pros on the track, the believability and the potential for larger audiences increases. Keep in mind that it is these very antics of sports entertainment that allowed the sport to draw crowds at or above the NBA and NHL level during its heyday. The exaggerated action is what brought many of us to the game initially, whether we knew it at the time or not. But that same element, if executed poorly, results in disenchanted fans who don't come back. Therefore, it is a balancing act. How about this one? Hold on here. Got to get to the right place. He's listing a number of reasons for the death of roller derby, and there are 6 that he listed: a departure of an executive, purchase of the roller derby by Roller Games, the oil crisis, loss of TV syndication, because the Roller Games guy just didn't renew his syndication contract. He didn't want to spend the money. But also overexposed showmanship. Apparently, roller derby called their angles promotions, or their interviews and confrontations, whatever, the stuff that we would call angles and promos, they called promotions, right? Desperate to increase or at least sustain enough revenue to survive, Griffiths, the guy who ran Roller Games, pushed the boundaries of showmanship versus sportsmanship, increasing the number of scripted promotions, which alienated some fans and skaters. While it's true that these promotions typically enhanced attendance in the short term, a delicate balance between the proper dosage and overdose was needed. In 1974 and in future versions of roller games, this balance was disrupted and resulted in the damage of the league's reputation and ultimately lower fan turnout. Unless extra caution is taken in regards to the sheer volume of scripted acts implemented, as well as their precise execution, the perceived integrity of the game is compromised and fans slowly move on. And finally, hold on. You can edit that out if you want to. Whether you're a fan of the infamous Thunderbird's antics or what some would call sideshow, these scripted bits brought out more fans than just about anything else. However, there is a delicate balance in this business of sport versus show. Almost all the other top professional sports incorporate elements of showmanship to one degree or another, but where do you draw the line on the entertainment aspect? The answer should at least partially be based on how well-trained and skilled the talent is. The execution of anything done strictly to enhance viewer satisfaction should always be done carefully. Roller Games was guilty of getting carried away with this aspect of the game. Roller Derby, on the other hand, while still staging and scripting many parts of their game, did it with more restraint. Their game was more believable, and the talent was such that the execution was impeccable. As I pointed out in the previous chapter, one critical aspect of the demise of the mighty Thunderbirds was the gross overuse of physical altercations, scripted sideshow dramas, and predetermined winners and losers. Basically, what they were saying, it was the same thing when you had these guys that were legitimately world-class roller derby skaters, the Ray Stevenses and the Buddy Rogerses of roller derby. They could do this shit and pull it off because they were so good and it didn't look hokey. But when you have guys with less experience, with less talent, or just with less training and overall practice, trying to do shit that's as wild or even wilder than the shit that, they used to do in the old days, it looks hokey. It doesn't grab you. And that's where we've gone now, when whether it's too much about these scripted promotions or too much about the moves without the intent. That's where we've gone, I think.
It's pretty interesting. The parallels
Food for thought. Go ahead, parallels.
Was there anything about wrestling in the book?
Yes, not as much as you would think, but he mentions it a bunch, but you can tell he didn't really know that much about wrestling otherwise than it would follow the same flavor. And he compared the two, but not really much detail. But, that's the thing. These people weren't necessarily wrestling fans. And most of the skaters were small, because smaller, at least, than the wrestlers you had to be to move around like that. They wanted to be skaters. But backstage and behind the scenes, apparently a lot of the skaters were like a lot of the wrestlers. They would not exactly be training like professional athletes in those days either. They'd be out at the bar or whatever. But anyway, you want to talk about some wrestling before I succumb to all of this? That I've got either the Zantac or the coronavirus?
Well, a couple things. One is I'm going to put a link on Twitter for anyone who wants this book so they could easily get it on Amazon. I'll put a link up once the show comes out. Secondly, I would love to tell the audience about my podcast for a moment.
Well, I guess you might. Well, since apparently you're not taking over mine now, you might as well tell the people what you're doing on the 18 you already do.
This week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, it's the debut of the Happy Heyman Comedy Hour. No, of course not. Boy, now I kind of have to do the show just to hear what it'll be. This week on Breaking Kayfabe with Baldrin and Barry, the boys welcome Bobby Van Cavalier to the show to discuss 1979 Florida. Check this out today at baldrinpod.com, or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. This week on John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, we listen to the original broadcast from November 26th, 1989, with Dave Meltzer talking about the Survivor Series, which just took place. Tully Blanchard, fired. Barry Windham, no-show. Akeem, no-show. What's going to be the main event for WrestleMania 6? Hear what people were predicting in November of 1989. You can hear the podcast today at pwspod.com or the original broadcast at patreon.com/Arezi. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership.
Oh, my head is so painfully splitting.
The Pampero Furpo.
You can't even say. Who still remembers Pampero Furpo? Apparently not Brian Last.
Apparently I can't pronounce it. Well, actually, I just got one of those AWA iron-ons. You ever see those? Where
Are you having a stroke?
I apparently I am.
You sound like Trump.
Well, I just got one of these old AWA iron-ons, and they misspell his name. It says Pamperpo Furpo.
Furpo.
Which sucks, because I would have actually put it on a shirt, but now I can't because it's a completely wrong spelling. But the Pampero Furpo special is about to come out. We waited a few extra days because we were waiting on some more classic audio for the show. Check that out at 605pod.com or available wherever you find your favorite podcast. And episode 102 is in production right now. Part 2 of our conversation with Scott Teal, dealing with what exactly happened with the book Soul Man, the Rocky Johnson biography that Scott wrote, which has now been pulled from the market. And in researching that, we found some other information. We're also going to have Greg Oliver on the show to talk about his involvement with Rocky Johnson's book and some other information about Rocky that I haven't seen really out there too much with the news of his passing, but it's stuff that really makes you reevaluate who he was. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we have Al Getz on the show from chartingtheterritories.com. He's found a new way to analyze classic wrestling and apply statistics to judge who was strong in a certain territory, what feuds were the strongest in a certain territory.
Wait a minute. I thought that was Tony Khan was going to do that on this sports-based presentation on All Elite Wrestling.
Al Getz is doing it with his own money, not his daddy's money. We'll have more information about that and much more on this episode. 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
Does anybody get thrown in the pool?
Not this week.
All right. Which show did you watch of this week's Wednesday Night Wars first? I'll let you pick what we talk about first.
I watched AEW on a 20-minute delay after it started on my DVR.
Very good. We will start there because I got to be honest with you. As bad as I hate to say it, I think I liked AEW better this week than NXT because I never expect really anything from AEW, and NXT disappointed me.
I'm really starting to think in the last few weeks, and I know we said it early on, but then they really hit a hot peak. NXT needs to get out of that building, at least in my eyes. They need to get into a big arena where it's going to have some excitement, some light.
Well, I would like some more light, but I think they just need to do more of the good shit and less of the bad shit. And that would help them more than changing location.
I think that too, but if you go back and forth between the two shows, one show looks like it's alive, and one show looks like it's at another pace. And you want to be able to capture people when they flip back and forth, figuring people are flipping back and forth.
Yeah.
And I don't think NXT's television show right now is conducive to getting people to stick with them if they flip to that channel.
Well, it wasn't this week.
No.
But, let's start with All Elite Wrestling. The opening segment, the Moxley promo, and the angle, the Jericho interrupts, the angle with the inner circle, the whole 9 yards, that was pretty much the first 20 minutes of the program, which I think they probably could have done it a little quicker. But, Moxley's another guy I'm so conflicted on because this was a great promo. I want to like him. I just know he does all that hardcore shit and on purpose, not even being forced to. And that just takes him down in my estimation. But the promo was good. I don't know what you thought.
I thought the promo was good. The longer it went, the more I expected someone to come out. And I hate having that feeling because I actually thought it would have been really effective if he came out there, did a kick-ass promo, and left. As opposed to go out there, do your kick-ass promo, and then someone's music hits, and they come down, and there's a confrontation. I don't know how I felt about the confrontation with just random guys from the Bronx.
Well, yeah, I was like, wait a minute, explain this to me. See, that's where it went. And plus, I love Jericho, with his promos too. And by the way, let me start at the top. I've never listened to Judas before until day before yesterday as an actual song. I've heard the entrance music, but I've never actually listened to it as a song. And I love that fucking song. And what made me go and listen to it was everybody fucking singing it and them starting to do that deal in the arenas. And I wouldn't be surprised if he, off of this, he couldn't get that thing on the fucking charts again somehow. But I love the song. I love the, But there's 5 of them, right? Was Hager out there on that at that point?
Yeah. He was wearing a T-shirt, by the way, not his usual, picking up his kids on the pickup line outfit.
On the pickup line? I don't think his kids are standing on a pickup line.
That's what they call it when you go to the school to get your kids. The pickup
really?
line.
I would have thought a pickup line was maybe over in the Bronx on the corner at 2 a.m, the pickup line. But anyway, there's 5 of them, and it's Moxley. They have to bring 5 more guys out to make it even, like it's Bruce fucking Lee, and then he charges them anyway. They're doing a lot of stuff on this show that is wrestling angle based, but there's little things that are modern wrestling to it that make it not make sense. And that's one of them. There's no way that the Horsemen would have been standing there saying, well, hey, Dusty, here's 5 more guys from the locker room to back us up just in case, what the fuck? I don't get that.
No, again, I thought Moxley's promo was really good. The energy in the crowd was fantastic. Yep. Even if you wanted to do Moxley and Jericho going back and forth, I thought that would have been one thing, but I thought, and I hate to criticize everything even when I like it, but I felt like it went too long. I felt like all that stuff was unnecessary. It would have been a lot stronger in my eyes if Moxley came out there and did a kick-ass promo and that was it. You didn't need to do, we just happen to have all these bums from the Bronx here.
Well, and we know Tony Khan will pay for 5 plane tickets. But anyway, but I know what I'm going to say next is going to shock you. The Young Bucks actually had a good match. Butcher and Blade.
You really are sick.
Well, but listen, hear me out. Butcher and Blade get paid by MJF to take out the Young Bucks, right? And Bunny's along, and MJF's on color, who JR introduced as Matthew Jacob Friedman. And of course, obviously, he wants to get even for the Bucks tossing him in the fucking pool. At least it's an excuse for him to run his mouth out there, but I didn't think they made as much of that as they could have. But to me, this was the best Bucks match on television because Blade and Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker, whatever, they can't do all of that flippy, floppy bullshit. They're actual heels, and the match made some kind of sense. And Butcher and Blade, they're not a top team, but they're certainly better than Dark Order. So, I mean, this had to go through a break also. But the Bucks won clean with their finish, not 72 false finishes, and they got over a mid-card heel team that you could tell who the heels were. And so it was actually a decent fucking match for the Bucks that made sense, and somebody got over. And then, of course, they try to get the fucking heat, and then here comes Olivier and Paige. I don't know why Adam Page is a fucking drunk, but I thought it was a cute spot here, hold my beer, and then he flips over the top rope and hits the lariat and then gets the beer back. But apart from that, I don't know why they want this guy to be a drunk or whatever the fuck.
It's the only thing they've done to get him, I shouldn't say get him over, because he was already over with that fan base, but get him over with me, a new viewer to these guys. I didn't think Adam Page brought much to the table those first few weeks. Same moves in every match. There was nothing other than him coming out with a bandana around his neck that really distinguished him from anyone else. Now he has some personality. Now I am curious where they're going with him.
But does he have to be a drunk instead of being like a fucking Steve Austin beer drinking guy? Like, hey, I'm having beer, but I'm not drunk. I don't know. Because he's coming out being actually kind of half fucking sloshed, is he not?
That's certainly the appearance they're trying to give.
Well, anyway, but at least, like you said, at least he's in something.
I see. I hated that video they did before the match. I'm not a big fan of the vignette video that is clearly fake.
Well, yeah, I was just skipping over that because it's just accepted that, if this was the Mafia, would they have caught Vincent the Chin Gigante going to make a payoff to fucking, Fat Tony Salerno for somebody to get whacked?
Wow.
And there's a camera there?
Very good. Very good that you know some of these names here. I won't comment on those gentlemen, but I will say that I hated that, and it was something they did throughout the show, just these vignettes that are professionally shot. Sometimes, the camera changes so you could tell it's so professional that it takes me out of it. But the other thing is, since they debuted the Butcher, the Baker, and the Candlestick Maker, and I'll even call them by their Christian name, the Butcher and the Blade, they have done nothing but jobs every single time they're on TV. The Butcher has a great look. The Blade guy, I know you really liked the match. I wasn't as high on it as you. There's one thing that it just took me out of it right away. And everyone does it, but to me, it was egregious in this match. And I don't know the proper way to call it, but where the guy goes for the punch, but it's nowhere close to a punch. It's almost like an overhand pitch, and the other guy ducks under it.
Yeah, and the up and over.
The up and over. It was so often and so clearly, like it wasn't even close to hitting the guy. It was, you're going for it to miss it. I didn't like that. And again, these guys.
Well, look, I didn't say this was Steamboat and Youngblood against fucking Slaughter and Cornette. I said it was one of the best Young Bucks matches I've seen, just because it made sense. But it's got its limitations.
What do you think about the potential for the Young Bucks versus Omega and Page? The direction it looks like they're going.
Well, that'll be a complete fucking clusterfuck. They'll do every goddamn move that anybody's ever done, and Page will do all of his that he does in every match that he never misses, and makes them all look so easy that he's devalued all of them. Like that backflip, he does a backflip off the top rope and lands on his feet on the floor, and he does it in every match just to make sure that everybody knows that it must be just easy, instead of making that is the Big Show bump, the Big Show move. And then Olivier and the Bucks will do everything they've ever done before, and it'll be a goddamn mess. And it's sooner or later, Paige will turn on Olivier, and I don't fucking know. It's Omega's involved, so what the fuck?
But what do you think about what I'm saying? They bring in the Butcher and the Blade to be this heel tag team with the Bunny, and they've done nothing but jobs each and every week. Why should the viewer care about them?
Well, there's no reason. Because they don't do matches to get anybody over. They just do matches for people to have matches, and they assume that the fans think that they're over ahead of time. There's been practically no. I think there's been one or two. I get mixed up whether they're on NXT or AEW sometimes, but except for Finn Balor last week, there's really no squash matches or just get over matches on either of the programs. I want to see a star come out and look good and kick the shit out of somebody in 4 minutes, do it and get out of there and look good. And the other guy, one tackle pancake at your fucking match, pal. Because that's the way guys get over. And nobody gets over. They just have competitive match. Everybody is competitive with everybody else, except for the heels who, whenever they get heat on somebody, the baby faces come back instantly and are just fine.
Yep.
But anyway, next match, Nyla Rose versus Big Swole. Explain to me, what does Big Swole mean?
There used to be a guy in WCW as part of Master P's No Limit Soldiers that was named Big Swole.
Okay.
I think we're supposed
to. This is a girl that's a half the size of Nyla Rose, and she's supposed to be big and swole up. I don't fucking know. She got half her fucking head shaved. At one point, Nyla Rose actually ducked before Big Swole swung a punch. Then Swole went for a drop kick and went straight past. I've never seen anybody miss a drop kick to the side, but that's what happened. There was a break in this match. It went through a break. Swole did some weak, phony striking and palm strike shit. This was so bad and went so long, it buried Nyla Rose by the time she won. Big Swole got way too fucking much. They have buried Nyla Rose. She's supposed to be a monster and a beast. She barely hangs on against mid-level girl talent and fucking loses more than she wins. So this is once again fucking disaster hour. And all these girls are so green on AEW compared to NXT. It's fucking embarrassing.
I fast forwarded through this match. I told you I started 20 minutes behind. This was the match where I made up some of the time.
Well, good. Remember that when I come to talk to you about NXT here later on.
Because the women's division in AEW has just been awful. And it's awful. And it goes through a commercial break again. Just like all those endless Emi Sakura matches.
Yeah.
So, no, I skipped past this. I didn't think there was anything I was going to miss. And apparently I didn't miss anything. Except bad wrestling.
Well, every one of these matches, really on both shows, went through a break. And here's the thing, and I've written over 1,000 hours of live wrestling television or live-to-tape wrestling television. You know what you can fucking do with supposedly they have so much talent? you cannot have one of these long matches. Instead, you can have one of these matches go half the time it's going, and you can put a guy who just won last week on TV, put him in there and let him win again. Because that's the way you get people over. And have him win in 5 minutes, too, so you don't go through a break and people have a chance to change the fucking channel. Good God. Next, Kip Sabian with Penelope Ford against Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson. This went through a break. Kip Sabian looks like a high school kid in a drama class production of West Side Story with Penelope Ford, who we know personally, she's got to be a crackpot because she's fucking around with Jelly Nutella. And secondly, we've established that she's a shits in the ring because we saw that last week, did we not?
Did we? Did she do something in the ring that wasn't good last week? I don't remember that. Was
she not the one that couldn't fucking lock up? Did she not work last, or was it somebody else I'm thinking of?
It may have been someone else because I think she was in the intergender match that wasn't on the show.
Okay, well then I'm sorry. Then I'll wait to see what she can do in the ring. But anyway, the first half of this match, the first segment, was a good top guy versus mid-card guy match, and Cody kept it a little interesting and gave him a little bit. And right when they went to the break should have been when they were going to the finish. And Cody should have hit the crossroads, boom, 1, 2, 3. But instead, they go through a break. Then they come back, and Arn and the referee get into it. And Arn is kicked out of ringside for getting in the ring and chest bumping the referee. Why was this happening? He made Arn look stupid. Nobody wants to see Arn get kicked out of ringside. Why is Arn arguing with the referee when Cody is in a match with Kip Sabian? What's Arn supposed to do when Cody's in a match with the fucking MJF, his mortal enemy? Shoot the referee in the head? Then, when Arn gets kicked out, Penelope and Kip, I can't even believe I'm saying those names on a wrestling program. Fucking hell. Penelope and Kip go to do a kiss spot, and there comes Jelly up from behind the fucking railing, and they kiss him each on each side of his cheek. He jumped in the middle of them and made a funny face. Cody Rhodes, your top baby face, is in the goddamn ring watching all this shit with underneath talent doing their own bullshit when he's supposed to be winning this fucking match. It's fucking stupid. Then they go in the ring and Sabian gets more heat on Cody. That's why I wrote down, what the fuck? As a matter of fact, I wrote down, do a good 8 minutes and Cody hit your fucking finish for fuck's sake. And then finally, Cody gets mad and hits the crossroads 3 times on Kip Sabian.
And that looked great. I got to say, Kip Sabian took that crossroads better than anyone else. It looked fantastic.
And you know what? It was perfect if they were going to do videos from the hospital for the next month showing Kip Sabian in traction from taking 3 of Cody's crossroadses. But he's going to be back on TV, I'm sure, on a YouTube show next week. 1 crossroads and put your foot on his fucking chest, young man. Because if you don't get over, nobody else in this fucking company besides Jericho is going to. Because they don't know how. So it's up to Cody, MJF, and Jericho to save this goddamn thing. So hit him with a crossroads, put your foot on his chest and pin him. If you're going to give him 3, make sure that we see the footage of the fucking neurosurgery that follows, Cody. On Kip fucking Sabian? No. I've been telling guys this in locker rooms for the past year since I realized what they were doing. Everybody is sitting down with guys, regardless of how they're presented by the promotion or how they're perceived by the fans or what they look like or what their talent level is. They're sitting down with everybody saying, let's have the best match we can. What do you do? I'll do all of your stuff. And then here's what I do. You do all of my stuff. No. Unless it's 2 main event guys in a big pay-per-view match for the championship to blow off the whatever the fuck. If it's a top main event guy and a middle card guy, have a nice match, give him some offense, kick shit out of him, and beat him with your finish. For fuck's sake, this is not goddamn rocket science. Then, remember how, well, what did you think? I'm sorry, I skipped ahead of you.
Well, that's quite all right sometimes. I personally like Kip and Penelope together as a unit. I think there's something that could be done with them. Hopefully after they get through with the Jelly Nutella feud. And I don't like backstage vignettes that look fake. You mean to tell me Jelly Nutella sneaks down the ringside, no one reacts to him because he's not a star.
Right.
And he pops up perfectly timed.
Yeah.
Right as the camera's there. See, again, it's just...
because he knew they were going to do that.
It's just one of those silly things I don't like. I did get a kick out of him giving him the middle finger as he backed off into the crowd. That cracked me up. But, again, it went too long. But I'm going to hone in on the Arn Anderson thing. They blew it with the introduction of Arn as Cody's coach. They did it in a press release. And then all of a sudden he's with him on TV. We're supposed to not only watch their YouTube shows, but read their press releases now. He has done nothing. He has added no value to any of this.
Can you imagine the promo that they could have done if Cody called Arn out and asked him in front of all the people for the first time to be his coach and let Arn consider it and let Cody sell him on it and let Arn look at the people for their thoughts and then the handshake and the seal of the deal? That's television that they ain't fucking showing me when they're showing me goddamn Big Swole.
Not just one of the great promos of all time, but one of the great promos in front of a crowd of all time. He did it during the Nitro era, and he was fantastic. And I do not believe...
My spot.
He has done maybe one
But there
promo.
was an homage on one of our shows recently as an hour and a half or so ago.
That's right. But in terms of the promos he's done on AEW TV since becoming the coach for the Rhodes Brothers, there was that one where he basically said, we don't have anything to say. We'll say something next time.
Yeah. One
of the great talkers of all time. He's out there right now. They have not utilized his talking at all. This thing with him getting kicked out because of the boot. The boot offended him so much he had to go in there and belly bump the referee. And then get kicked. It's just so stupid. It's like, for every step forward, there's 2 steps back. In my eyes, I know to their fan base, everything's perfect. Everything's grand. You can't do anything wrong. But it just doesn't make sense sometimes. It's like you have an idea and you go from A to Z, but you don't fill in any of the points in between. I don't understand what they're doing. It's a waste of Arn Anderson. If you're going to use Arn Anderson in a role like this, use Arn Anderson. Don't just have him out there in a sweater vest, walking you down to the ring, and then leaving, and he doesn't say anything.
I had Arn Anderson for one television taping in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and we created one of the 5 most well-remembered segments of the 200 episode run of the series. And they've got him every week.
And Big Swole and Nyla Rose are going through a commercial break. That's the thing. They have a lot of people there who could actually do some talking without being scripted. And we don't hear from them enough. And instead we get matches that go too long that, you know, forgive me if I'm wrong. I mean, like some of the Young Bucks matches go too long, but their audience is into it. No one's into Big Swole versus Nyla Rose. And I'm using them as an example for other matches that have gone that long too. Utilize Arn Anderson. Where the fuck is Tully Blanchard?
Well, he got kidnapped and tied to a chair, so he's pretty much impotent.
Have we seen him
second week
then?
on television? Maybe that may have been his. He may still be in fucking. Who did it? Was it Jelly?
It was Jelly. And by the way, what happened to that program? What happened to Jelly Nutella and Sean Spears? I'm not saying I was a big fan of that program, but if that program built up the Jelly kidnapping Tully Blanchard and having him duct taped or whatever it was, tied to a chair on the stage, and then nothing. And then it just went away. The Dork Order beat up the Young Bucks, an angle that everyone shit on, everyone was offended by. It was a huge beatdown. They beat up the entire Elite, and nothing since then with the Elite and the Dork Order. It's like no one is there dealing with quality control. Quality control is more than just how many flips you can do in a match. It's, does this shit make sense? Is this laid out correctly? Does the format make any fucking sense? But again, what do I know? I'm just a lifelong wrestling fan. I don't.
Well, you know what? I'm thinking that maybe Tully saw that and said, you know what? Here's my chance to get the fuck off this sinking ship. And when they called him to come back to work, he said, no, I'm still tied to the chair in Jelly's basement. I can't get out. Anyway, after that match, what did they showed a VTR of poor Britt Baker being allowed to twist in the wind on live TV last week doing that promo that they had to cut away from. Then they gave her another chance at it.
I got to stop you there. I actually heard from some people, I couldn't believe this, who thought her promo last week was good because it was real. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. It was awful.
I like Britt Baker. Everybody's heard me say, well, they've lost the chance on this too. The boat has left the harbor, but she should have been the star of the women's division because at least she's marketable to an American audience. But it was like somebody said, go out and do lines that you think a bad guy wrestler does and say things on purpose to be. Why is she suddenly a bitch? Is there any reason been given that she's suddenly telling Tony Schiavone he's a shitty barista and telling him, whatever the fuck and insulting all the people and how great she is? By the way, I'm a dentist. And why is she mad at the announcers? She doesn't sound like she believes anything she's saying. She is pretending to be a heel wrestler, saying the things that a heel wrestler would say, allegedly, to somebody who's not watched a lot of wrestling. Yeah. I don't think.
The Brandy Rhodes school of heel wrestling. But that's the other thing with Schiavone.
Why is this? Why?
Well, with Schiavone, is the audience supposed to know that he's a barista as one of his many different jobs? Are they supposed to know this?
Because everybody's smart and lives their life on the internet and reads all the sheets and all the sites. Of course they know. Why wouldn't they know that all of Tony Schiavone's various jobs? They've referred to it a time or two on television, but the point, and why is Tony just standing there and taking it? It's staged. It's not. I would love to be the interviewer when the fucking heel was coming back and so we could go back and forth a little bit and you try to keep the goddamn energy level up instead of Britt Baker using lines that somebody's given her on a guy standing there holding a microphone. But I don't fucking know why this is happening.
Well, I did think her promo this week was worlds better than the promo last week, but I thought about your old example from Mid-South Wrestling. Is she going to do a program with Jim Ross? Is she going to do a feud with Tony Schiavone? Why is she just cutting down the commentators and then they just take it and don't say anything back?
Because she's playing a heel. Anyway, then, God damn it. I used to like SCU, Kazarian and Scorpio Sky and Chris Daniels. The more I see of them and the way they're presented, the less I like them. This time they wrestled Jack Evans and Angelico,
I believe.
Okay, in the fluorescent outfits, and they're introduced at a total of 377 pounds, so automatically coming out, I can't take them seriously. 2 grown adult men at a combined weight of 377 pounds is fucking stupid. But then the very first thing that happened was Kazarian and Angelico lock up, right?
Well,
anybody that wants to go back and look at this now, the very first contact of the match, they lock up and Angelico locked up like a fucking Girl Scout. What the fuck? And it lost me from there.
Me too. It looked like he didn't know any of the basics. It wasn't just a lockup. It was the headlock or whatever they were trying to do, the armbar. He didn't know. It seemed like he didn't know any of the basics at all. It took me out of it.
Well, I'm sure they never use them because they've spent most of their time in Mexico, and that's what Evans and him are both known for, is doing the flippy floppy stuff. And here Kazarian and Sky are trying to work with him. It was all over the place, back and forth. It never got going, but it never slowed down. The people didn't give a shit, and it went through a break. And then it was a big mess on the other side, and SCU won. But what why does it have to be so long through the break? Why can they not get anybody on the same? Why are they booking guys that obviously, and girls that obviously cannot work with each other because there's some kind of style clash or whatever the fuck? I don't understand.
I said this last time. Give me a 6-minute Nitro match over this. And I never thought I would have said that 20 years ago. And I'll say another thing. It seems like you're agreeing with it a little more and more. I've never been as high on Christopher Daniels as other people have, but I actually think Kazarian and Sky would be a lot better if they didn't have him marching out there with them.
Well, because I love Chris Daniels, and I've always liked his work. He's trying to be entertaining now. Instead of being himself, he's trying to be running around and the microphone thing and entertaining stuff. They're all trying to be entertaining instead of what they are, which is good wrestlers and good workers and good athletes. And they're probably calling now to complain about that. Hold on, let me see. And to me, I was there in TNA when Vince Russo tried to get Chris Daniels to be entertaining in his mind. When the fallen angel Christopher Daniels was just kind of a little tagline, a little gimmick, but he tried to make him Remember, that's when he tried to make him some kind of dark prophet or whatever, and he was doing all this religious stuff because Russo was a fucking religious nut. Chris didn't know anything about this, and it wasn't him, and Russo's writing shit for him, and that was just a mess. Just let the guys be fucking wrestlers. They don't have to be so goddamn catchphrasy and sing-songy and run around with the microphones. But I guess in today's atmosphere, that's what we're being subjected to. But these are roller derby skaters that just need to skate. They do that just fine, in my opinion.
Hey, on that topic, I guess I could just say it here because, we went past the segment earlier with Jericho. One thing Jericho does that I don't like is he calls the guys performers when he's on the mic.
Yes, I've noticed that now that you mention it. It's a whole new bunch of guys who are not being taught from the start. You don't say dressing room, you say locker room. You don't say show, you say match or card. You don't say work with, you say wrestle or fight. All these things, that used to be, I would have to beat it into their heads in OVW, and now nobody's beating it in anybody's heads, and they think it doesn't matter anymore. The terminology matters greatly. That's why you have guys like Excalibur and guys that are basically marks that have never done this on a professional basis before, just indie, and they don't know how to keep away from the improper terminology to make it all look like everybody's just putting on a fucking play.
Yeah, he did it again this week where he referred to it as the AEW Championship title. Like, what?
Yeah. That's like the luxurious chair. I don't know. Anyway, then right after the SCU thing, here comes the Dork Order to come out with a phony sounding threat to Christopher Daniels, and then they go to the Pac pre-tape promo, which he's pretty good and pretty intense, at least in a pre-tape. That wasn't bad. He looks like he'd fucking eat your lunch for you. Pac does.
I don't know why he's in his wrestling gear on a cold night on the stairs or wherever he was, but he's a good promo for what it's worth.
But then we come to the last match of the show, and it's like a tale of two promotions all in one match here. Private Party and Darby Allin against Chris Jericho and Santana and Ortiz, who are no longer proud and powerful. But somebody on Twitter mentioned we should call them X-Lax because they were members of LAX, but that was long ago, so they're ex-LAX members, X-Lax. but here comes Jericho and the Judas song, and he's a star. And then here comes Private Party, and their ring gear is abysmal, and they do so much shit that looks weak and contrived because they're green. I wish I had Mark Quinn for a year or two in Ohio Valley Wrestling, what an athlete he is. If he was taught by guys like Rip Rogers and those guys, Dr. Tom Pritchard, from the ground up, how to work and how to think and would use that athleticism, he'd be a huge fucking star. But this was, except when Jericho was in there to kind of keep control of things, this was quite messy in a lot of spots. And they even did this double team thing. LAX tried to do a double team move on Mark Quinn, but Mark Quinn rolled through with it and it backfired, and one LAX member speared another one. And it was so contrived looking. Did you see that?
I did, and I've noticed a lot of contrived stuff in the past with the proud and powerful guys, especially the little one with the hair. This is now the second time in a row. I think previously he just bent over and waited for the Young Bucks to super kick a chair into his head. This time, he was bent over the ropes waiting for the spot, and it was apparent that he was waiting for a spot. And I'm starting to think maybe he's not the greatest worker. But with all the guys doing contrived stuff, I have to say I get more and more positive about Darby Allin every time I see him.
Yes.
Because he does the flippy stuff, and he does the stuff that other guys make look contrived. And for some reason, the way he does it, it doesn't look contrived. It looks like it's happening in the moment. It looks like it's happening quickly. He lays stuff in. I remember
what the roller derby guy said about the quality of the performer. When you got guys that are really good doing something, it doesn't look so fucking contrived and bullshit.
Yeah.
My notes, Allin, best part of this, his shit doesn't look phony. You like you said, it looks like it's just coming up because he's got that balance and that ability to switch gears in midair and all that stuff. I'm getting more to be more of a fan of his. Yes. And that's why it's a tale of two promotions all in one match. There's some outlaw indie looking shit on national TV, and then there's a new fucking star, and then there's the old star, Jericho, that still has it. But then, is Quinn's partner, is it Isaiah Cassidy or Isaiah Kennedy? Because they were calling him both.
Well, if you mean they, you mean Jim Ross. He's been calling people by various different names every single week.
Well, JR was calling him one thing, and Goof Mask was calling him another thing.
I think it's Isaiah Cassidy, but I'm not even sure now that you ask me.
Well, anyway, so then Jericho hits Cassidy Kennedy with the Judas effect. Boom, 1, 2, 3, and then they start getting heat afterwards. And I think you could even actually tell Jericho went over and said something to referee Aubrey right before they got out of the ring. I think he probably just said, tell him to get back in the ring when we get out so that they could come back in and jump him again. But do heels know how to get heat on anybody anymore? It was a bunch of silly looking swingy punches that nobody was really doing sharp looking shit. Go look at when Dennis Condrey used to get heat on somebody and he was throwing those kicks. Everything looked like it was kicking you to death, and the fucking sound and motion. It's just all the heels just glom on and do fake looking shit to get heat anymore. And then this was the worst part. Okay. Allen's gimmick is his skateboard. So they hit him, they gut shotted him with it, and they fucking did blah, 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 whatever. But then they grab it, stick it next to his throat, and then drop him down. It was an awkward way to do it. We did it with Ricky one time where I held the racket up, and they picked him up and dropped him throat first on the edge of the racket. Or Lawler, his hand-eye coordination is so good, he used to do a spot where the heel would have him on the floor, and there's those rope stands for the rope around the ring, right? The heel would grab him and instead of run his head first into it, he'd run his chin and throat into it. And Lawler would make it look good because he had that coordination. But this looked okay, but there was no blood, no Alka-Seltzer, no fucking, it's a hospitalization angle. And then here comes Moxley and makes a save with a bat. And he couldn't actually, you can't do a lot with a bat. This wasn't a Bullet Bob comeback with a bat where he knew right where to put it and make it look good. It was like peripatetic all over the place with what may or may not have been a real bat. But God damn it, you've just wasted something else. The throat shot to Allen, can you imagine? Like we did to Pillman. The Vegematic on the racket on the throat.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Do something afterwards where, okay, either he's bleeding from the mouth or, like I said, the Alka-Seltzer so he can get a little foam. And, his vocal cords have been injured or whatever. If you're going to do that, then make an angle out of it and make it important. How many more things are they going to do to people where there's no ill effects? They just come back next week and nobody's bothered. What the fuck? There was no need for that there. Get some good looking heat with kicking and stomping and raise the people's temperature, get the heat up in the building, and then send the babyface out to make a good comeback at the right time. If you're doing a hospitalization angle, then really you want the heels to leave with their heat and don't want them to get touched anyway. So if you're doing a big comeback, there's no reason to do something that heinous when they're going to get the heat blown off of them 10 seconds later. Has anybody that's been in the wrestling business more than 20 years ever bothered to explain this to any of these people? I would think Jericho would know.
Yeah, I don't.
Anyway.
I thought the Judas effect looked really good when Jericho hit that for the finish.
Yes.
And Jericho looked like he was in a little better shape than he's been lately, so.
Maybe he's just letting them have fun. And he's like, it doesn't matter anyway because all hope is lost. Nobody's really ever going to take this seriously again and my money's guaranteed.
He's the biggest star there. He's the only one who should be an EVP. And he's not.
Well, yeah, that's because he doesn't want to take any of the blame for all the rest of the shit. He's, as a friend of mine used to say, he's got a bird's nest on the ground because he can be the best star, the biggest star and the best performer on the show without him really hardly trying. And at the same time, he does not have an official position where he doesn't have to take the blame for all the stupid shit that goes on other places that he's not around.
With the Inner Circle, I like Jericho with Guevara. I like Guevara in his role. I can see the value in Hager. I don't think Proud and Powerful fit with those guys.
I don't see that either because they don't look like they would hang out together outside wrestling.
That's right.
And that's what the group should be. So anyway, before the coronavirus takes over on me, we're going to go through NXT real quick because I want to make a point that no matter how bad things can be on one channel, they can always be worse. They really disappointed me this week. And there was good things, but holy fuck. Finn Balor and Trent Seven. Trent Seven looks like an old territory mid-level heel, right? He doesn't look like the rest of these guys, does he? He doesn't have the physique, and he doesn't have the look to it. I don't know. But in Balor, he's the heel, obviously. He jump starts it when Trent Seven turns his back, laying down on the apron, and turns his back to Finn Balor, so Finn Balor just drop kicks him in the next month. I don't know why. But at least the heel was established at the first move. And Finn Balor basically kicked the shit out of him and beat him and got over like a top guy. I think it went a little long, but otherwise than that, but Finn Balor, that's what he's doing. He's going out and he's beating guys that are clearly not as good as he is and getting some fucking steam on him. So I'm all over that.
I've really liked him since he returned to NXT. I agree.
But then we go from the penthouse to the outhouse. Because here comes Shotzi Blackheart in a fucking toy tank as an entrance. Green hair, helmet with fucking antlers on it. She's riding a toy tank. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And she wrestles Deonna Purrazzo. It's first time I've met Deonna a number of times. She was trained by Rip Rogers, and it showed. She actually could wrestle. You could tell when she locked up or the holds or shit she did, she's actually been trained and has some experience. Whereas Shotzi Blackheart is not quite, but almost as green as her fucking hair. And so this was, Deonna tried, and her job was to get the other girl over, and she did as best she could, and Shotzi wins with some kind of fucking thing off the top. It was better than an AEW women's match, but it wasn't NXT quality, and Shotzi Blackheart is greener than a pepper tree, as Spaceman Frank Hickey would say. And that was, Eh?
Yeah, it didn't do it for me.
Okay. But then here comes Keith Lee. Live interview. I've been waiting for this. I even wrote, I want this to be great. But let me ask you, maybe you know, or the folks can tell me, did he used to be a heel? Did he start out in NXT as a heel?
I actually don't know because I wasn't watching at the time.
Okay, his mannerisms, the aloof expression he gets, the bask in my glory, his method of speaking kind of condescendingly, it's heelish. So I'm wondering if he was a heel in NXT, and then he switched babyface, and now the people like those things about him, but being exposed to a new audience, he comes off and he opens with a guy that looks like that, a kick-ass Hulk smash motherfucker, and he opens the first words out of his mouth are greetings and salutations. It don't fit. Do we need a history piece? Should the people, the new audience with NXT on national TV know this guy used to be an arrogant prick heel, but he changed to some of his outlook, and people, now they like him, and, they've adopted some of his I don't know what the fuck, but he's the oddest babyface I've ever seen. The promo was okay. Damian Priest interrupted it. I've mentioned I like him. He's got a different look. He's got a great voice. He actually sounds like a man. He's the only guy in wrestling now that has a voice that sounds like the old-time male wrestlers used to sound like. Sputnik Monroe, right? He's got a deep voice, whatever the fuck. He holds the microphone very weird. I don't know what that was about. You can tell he's green talking. He didn't seem really confident with it, but he's good. Here comes Dijakovic. He interrupts, and he wants Priest and Dijakovic both want the North American title shot. Dijakovic has some great delivery, but here's where I note once again, it's modern wrestling presentation. They're all three just getting in the ring, asking for microphones. The microphones are handed into them without question. They've taken it's like the NBA players suddenly decided to stop the game down, and they all want to do interviews with the microphone at courtside. There's no interviewer with the microphone. There's nobody directing traffic and nominally in charge of the program, no host or announcer or interviewer to make this shit not look like a bunch of guys going out and doing setup verbiage with each other. And that's a modern presentation of sports entertainment, which is why I fucking hate it. Because it doesn't look legitimate that way.
I just hate one of the big modern wrestling things is a guy's in the ring doing a promo, and then the music hits and someone comes out, and then the music hits and another one. We just talked about this a few weeks back with one of the women's segments. I don't like it. I didn't mind where it went, but I hated the way it was done.
Well, if it's done every once in a while, it's okay, but it's done on all the shows all the time now. And then, I liked Keith Lee leaving fucking Priest and Dijakovic to have a argument. But then suddenly, boom, Priest pickles Dijakovic. Dijakovic gets up. Here comes a referee. And the announcer says, well, William Regal's approved this, and they have a match. That's lazy as fuck, especially all these matches are going through breaks. Right? So why can't Priest pickle Dijakovic get back up and go after Priest? A bunch of referees hit the ring. They're trying to pull these guys apart. And William Regal comes out and gets on the microphone in front of God and everybody and says, hey, you guys want to fight that bad? Hold on, because on the other side of this commercial break, we're going to give you a match and may the best man win. That'll hook me and not break the fucking match up. But they're lazy. So they do a little bit of a match, then they go to a break. And then they come back and they're both insanely athletic for their size, and they had a nice match. And both guys have good futures, but this was too long for a match out of an angle. I don't know how to explain it otherwise than that. When you have a match out of an angle like that, a confrontation between two guys and they jump and they're going to get it, you need to keep the energy and the pace up the whole way. It's not the point to have a pay-per-view quality match. It's not the point to do all your shit. It's the point to fucking shine one guy, then fucking get to heat up in the building on the other guy, then give that first guy a fucking comeback, and then do what you're going to fucking do. And it still was good, but they did that contrived, my favorite new word, contrived, because everything is big spot off the top rope where two guys with no business getting up there have to obviously help each other. And then it's a reverse Hurricane Rana off the top rope with guys that size. The stupidest move in all of modern wrestling, off the top rope and with guys that big. And it wasn't the finish. And then Dijakovic hits his finish. Why couldn't fucking hell. It just, they can't help themselves but go too far. Leave that fucking goofy Hurricane Rana thing out of it, and Dijakovic hit his finish, the thing would have been all right. But it just, I'm picking at nits because I want these guys to be better, because both of them will be. They're not garbage indie guys, but they ain't going to be any good if one of them breaks their fucking neck doing stupid shit they don't need to be doing like that. Anyway, your thoughts?
I enjoyed them working together. I thought they worked together well. I wasn't crazy about the top rope spot, although not as crazy as you are about it. I think if you're going to do something with them, I wouldn't have had a clean finish there, unless they're just getting Damian Priest out of the mix and they're going to go with Dijakovic and Keith Lee again. And that was kind of the program happening when we first started watching NXT. So there's a bit of a history there.
Yeah.
But I like both guys. And
I can see a Priest doing a job if he's going to come back and fuck Dijakovic out of something. I can see that, but yeah.
You know what it is? I have no confidence for either show, in week-to-week booking. So when you say, I can come back and screw him, I have no confidence that'll happen next week. I mean, I was just thinking about it as we're talking about it. Lio Rush,
I didn't even mean next week, but I mean at some time. But as you mentioned that, I thought, yeah, because I would obviously, if it was me, I would know what the match is going to be in a month or 6 weeks or whatever. Whereas I forget that they may not be doing this that far out.
Lio Rush, Angel Garza, I think even Velveteen Dream, unless he's injured, Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley, not on the show. Or if they were, I fast-forwarded and I missed them.
You didn't miss it. You didn't miss them.
So again, you have people who get like a couple weeks or maybe 1 week where they do something great with them, and then you don't see them. And instead we get matches that go too long. Matches that go through commercial breaks. And I don't even think this one went too long, but other matches certainly did. And some of the big stars on this show that if you tune in, you may go, wow, I can't wait to see them next week. You just don't see them next week.
Yeah.
And I think that's stupid.
Well, and then the next segment, let me get into this. I love the Undisputed Era. I've loved what they've been doing with Ciampa, the whole 9 yards. But when they come up out of break, there is Cole, O'Reilly, and Fish all laid out motionless in the back parking lot. And Ciampa is standing there with a fucking pipe. And it couldn't even be a dirty pipe. It had to be a wonderfully painted black, spotless pipe. And no, I believe he beat him up in the locker room. They can be selling, but there's not a spot of blood or a mark on him, but they're all just laying there motionless. And he's there with a pipe and nobody else has even come out. No. I'd rather they done the 4 flat tires thing as a reason why Cole's there all alone or whatever the fuck. But anyway, they did do something smart. Here comes Ciampa into the building and bringing a table with him. Guess what time it was? When he's walking into the ring with that fucking table, 8:59 p.m. Eastern. At the top of the hour, they have one of their top baby faces and their champion having a fucking face-to-face confrontation in the arena because they're smart like that. And here comes Adam Cole, and he heads down there and he confronts Ciampa. And they have their verbal confrontation, and Ciampa's going to beat up Cole, put him through the table, and get a match for the NXT title. Well, that's where they bring William Regal out. He said, well, he's already agreed to face anyone. I don't even know why Regal was out there for that, really, except to have the fucking contract. But they could have done something. They could have done Regal the earlier thing to make the match and just had Cole come out with a contract or whatever, or Ciampa. But anyway.
Well, I think they said Cole was actually with Regal when this all happened.
Okay, well, whatever. I don't mind seeing William Regal. He's a wonderful human being, but just that briefly. And anyway, the point is, when Cole got in and suckered Ciampa with the mic shot, it was, what do they call it? Serendipitous, fortunate juice. Because I guarantee you, I couldn't figure out at first, but I guarantee you when he hit him on the top of the head to make the noise with the microphone, those mic flags have sharp corners. And it looked like just right on the top of Ciampa's head, he didn't even gash him long. It was just a puncture wound that started bleeding. But boy, that made it. Because boom, he hits him and he gets him some fucking steam on him for a second. But then Tommaso turns it around and power bombs him through the table and signs the fucking match in blood. Signed the contract in blood, wiped the blood off his head and wipes it on the fucking contract and shows it to the camera. That was the best thing I saw all night.
And the fans were chanting, use your blood, use your blood. It was great.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was, and once again, most of the best things in wrestling happen because somebody knows what he's doing, takes advantage of something that wasn't supposed to happen. And so that was great. And I want to see that fucking match. And then what did they follow with? Tegan Knox versus Dakota Kai and Chelsea Green versus Caden Carter. And I'm sorry, but I have to say it. I've already seen a fucking girls match on this show. And these are not the top girls. And I fast forwarded both of them because what the fuck? 2 in a row after you've already had one. And everybody's,
no, the Tegan Knox one I thought was really good. I'm high on her. I think
they should have had it on first before I saw fucking goddamn whatever the fuck else I saw. Shotzi or Mitzi Shore or whatever her name is, because that soured me on women's wrestling. And I'm sorry, but most normal guys, if they're watching a wrestling program and a half of it at least is women, they're going to turn it off. Fuck.
I will say though, I thought it was silly, they just have all these women wrestling and having long matches. Tegan Knox and Dakota Kai. And now that I said I was high on Tegan Knox, it may have been Dakota Kai I was thinking of actually now that I say it. But there's a history there. They actually have a little bit of a program. They were friends. They were partners. She turned on her. Clean finish. Quick match. I couldn't believe it.
At least that was a quick match, eh?
Yeah, and it was good. I really liked that one. I thought that was easily the best women's match of the night. And not just best women's match, it was really good. I really enjoyed that.
When I started watching wrestling on television, if 30 minutes of the 1 hour show had been devoted to girls matches, we would not be having this conversation right now because I'd probably be in the newspaper business or on radio or something. Because I would have never been involved in wrestling. Anyway, speaking of not being involved in wrestling, we wind up this week's NXT program that I've tried to praise and am pulling for secretly because the other show is not even secretly, because the other show is such a goddamn indie clusterfuck. But holy fuck, the Dusty Classic final. Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle against Drake and Gibson, the grizzled young veterans. This thing went for fucking ever. It went through 2 different breaks. These are supposedly the best teams in the tournament, and immediately the first thing I saw was 2 backslap tags. So both the finalists in the tag team tournament do not know the rules of tag team wrestling. I'm so sick of these backslap tags, I want to throw a brick through my fucking television every time I see these guys doing this. Just lazy bullshit. And nobody's stopping them. And I would goddamn pull the plug if I was producing that program. I pulled the plug on a couple of things for. I would pull the plug on a tag match that gave me a backslap fucking tag. Because I'm sure I would have already told those people numerous times that that's not fucking right. But God, all these guys worked hard, but this was all over the place and everybody did everything. Repeatedly over and over. It was way too long. It got sloppier as it went. It went through 2 breaks. I wrote, will this ever end? At one point, Drake and Gibson did the Doomsday Device onto Pete Dunne, where the Road Warriors Doomsday Device, where the fucking guy holding Dunne on his shoulders was on the floor, and the guy doing the clothesline was diving through the ropes out of the ring, and the guy took the bump on the floor. And he stayed down for 15 seconds. They give him the Doomsday Device on the floor. They hit Riddle with a false finish, which he kicks out of, and then Dunne is back in 15 seconds later. And then they do a bunch of more shit, and then somehow Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne win. This overkill, overdone, what the fuck, back and forth. Nobody knew what the fuck was happening. Move after move after move. Strike after strike. What the fuck was going on with that? Is that an example of the modern new age of wrestling good match, or did you see what I saw?
I saw what you saw, but I really didn't dig the match at all. I just didn't dig the match. I can't even narrow in on why exactly. Here's the one thing I will say. AEW, there's stuff I don't like. There's a lot of stuff I don't like, and there's some stuff I like. But I get through that show and I'm not exhausted. NXT, I don't know if it's the energy or the way they lay out the show or what it is, but by the time I get to the last match on that 2-hour show, I'm done. I don't want to watch anymore. Yeah. And that's the way I felt this week. I mean, look, if it's a hot show and there's lots of interesting things happening, it's a different story, but I just did not give a shit about the finals of this Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Tournament at all. And the match, it wasn't for me. I don't know. I can't even narrow down why I didn't like it so much. I just didn't like it.
I'm trying to like Riddle because he's got something and everybody says, oh, he's so great. But the more I see, the more I'm not into Riddle because it's goofy and he does the same shit over and over. Some of it looks good. Some of it doesn't, but a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And they're grabbing feet so that the other guy can step up and do this and that and the other thing. It looks like a video game.
Can I ask you a question? Did you set your DVR to record the overrun that's no longer there?
Well, it automatically does.
Because
anyway,
I caught the first couple of minutes of Ms. and Mrs. or whatever the show is.
Oh yeah, I saw that come on and immediately hit stop.
You know what? It made me hate him so much. Just
really?
A couple of minutes. I never want to see that show or clips of that show ever again. Ever.
Well, I mean, it's like fucking Total Divas. I mean, if you're a woman watching it, I guess it's okay because women like those kind of reality shows. But what man would watch Mr. and Mrs. or Ms. and Ms. or Total Divas or whatever the fuck to begin with?
A modern wrestling fan.
No, certainly
yes,
to God.
I guarantee that audience. There's a reason it's on right after NXT. They're trying to get the WWE audience, and they'll get a lot of it. But it's watching Divas Live. I mean, or whatever, Total Divas, whatever the hell it is.
Every single one of the shows that of any of those reality shows involving wrestling people that I've seen, not only exposes the business, but is just complete dreck. but most reality TV is direct. But you can't tell me that males are watching either Mr. and Mrs., Ms., whatever the fucking program is, or Total Divas, where they're talking about their makeup and their goddamn romantic liaisons. You cannot tell me male wrestling fans, even in this day and age, are watching those programs, Brian Last.
Look, there's some weirdo wrestling fans out there, and it's more now than ever before. I guarantee you there's a large amount of men watching those shows. I don't know the ratings. I've never checked in the ratings for those shows. But I have to think, especially the pervert audience, you're leaving out the whole idea that
but they're not naked. What's the use of watching it
on the Diva show? Aren't they like
sex? There's no dick in the pussy on the fucking on Lifetime Network or whatever network they're on. So why would a pervert watch that? Nobody's getting naked.
Because you get to see these women that you fantasize about that they're on TV. I'm assuming they're in bikinis at some point and having like pillow fights and pool parties.
You can go on the internet and see goddamn, German gangbangs with 74 people and a fucking Dalmatian. What are you going to watch a bikini for? What the fuck?
Again, there's a perverted fan base that I'm assuming
if you'd rather watch women in bikinis for your porn than a German gangbang with 74 guys and a fucking Dalmatian, and what kind of goddamn pervert are you anyway? Do I have to now be disappointed in the fucking quality of the perverts in America today?
Obviously you do, because there are Twitter accounts that are just like, divas' asses, just pictures of the wrestlers, their asses, not naked,
fuck's sake,
but in their outfit in the ring. There's a weirdo pervert audience that I'm assuming is watching these shows in droves.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got the coronavirus, and I may not make it much longer.
After watching that, I got the cornea virus.
Yeah, but the cornea virus, there you go. But the good thing about that is that I might not have to watch next Wednesday night's wrestling shows. But assuming that I'm going to make it, we'll be back on Sunday, and we'll be back next week with the experience and the drive, or back on Monday. Rather, drive-through, and back next week for the experience. Since apparently you don't want the programs, or elsewise you want to turn them into a house organ for Happy Heyman's Looking for Larry Productions. We've never have determined who the fuck Larry is either. That's a story for another time.
Larry Fine.
Well, there you the law firm of Fine, Howard & Fine, attorneys at law. Anyway, yeah, that was about it. I feel like shit. Brian, you want to get off here? We're done?
I think we're done.
Okay, we'll see y'all next week. Until then, for all the Cult of Cornette members and the coronavirus, thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.